So a very warm welcome to all of you. We took a couple of days break because of Gita Jayanthi and Vaikuntha Ekadasi in between. So before we begin chapter 10, let's do a review of chapter 9. So we may spend probably 45 minutes on chapter 9 before we begin chapter 10. Because after all, chapter 9 is called the king of all knowledge. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga. So we've been looking at these single word summaries for some time now. And we did say that the middle 6 chapters is considered the most delectable part of that vada pav, right? The vada's taste by itself is very, very nice. But when it is sandwiched between the pav, that makes it even nicer. So normally, when you're reading any other mundane book or literature, the author waits till the very end to reveal the climax of the content for you. But here Krishna cannot wait till the end. So the actual sum and substance of the Bhagavad Gita is contained in this chapter, chapter 9, which is the king of all knowledge. We began by saying chapter 7, which is the beginning of the Bhakti Yoga section, where the Lord establishes himself as the absolute boss. And then chapter 8, he's saying, I provide guarantees to my devotees who can think of me at the time of death and think of me and me alone and nothing else. And God forbid if you think of something else and then you get definitely that something else, whatever that something else is for each one of us. So repeatedly the Lord states in chapter 8 that if we practice bhakti, if we can remember him throughout our life, which is an easy thing to do in the Lord's own words, he uses the word sulabha, easy. So if we can remember him throughout life, then it should be quite natural for us to remember him even at the time when the soul is exiting the body. And essentially, what is the Lord doing? He's inviting us back into the spiritual world in the middle 6 chapters, isn't it? He's telling you, you are in this material world. You really don't belong here. So it's like the parent, the mother that's calling out to the child who's gone out to play, and how much ever the mother may call, the child says, no, I'm not ready. I want a few more minutes. You don't allow me to play long enough. So the child starts protesting and complaining when the mother calls the child back home. Similarly, the Lord has repeatedly tried to call us back home, but we are too busy protesting, telling the Lord, no, just a little bit more I have to do, a little bit more I have to play. And literally that's what we're doing, we're playing. So if we have to go back to the spiritual world, if we have to leave the playground and go back home, or for some of us, if we have to leave the jail and go back home, what is the key that can unlock home for us? That is bhakti. And that was what we were studying a few days ago in this chapter titled Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga, the most confidential knowledge. So Krishna is methodically helping Arjuna come to the point where he recognizes the supreme absolute truth. In the first 6 chapters, Krishna is saying, first of all, understand who you are. After you've understood who you are, then you need to understand who the supreme absolute truth is. Who is your source? Then after you have understood who the supreme absolute truth is, then you need to understand the material nature in which you are trapped. It's only if you've understood these 3 aspects. Who am I? Who is Bhagavan? And how is Prakriti keeping me here? Will you actually make any effort to try to come back home? So the Lord lays down the criteria for anyone who wants to understand this most confidential knowledge. This most confidential knowledge is bhakti. And the criteria the Lord is laying down is, he has told Arjuna, I'm about to reveal this to you because you are not envious. And because of that, you will be able to get yourself released from the miseries of this material world. You are always going through ups and downs and ups and downs. It's so cyclical. And Krishna is emphasizing that this bhakti yoga that he's about to speak on is the king of education. It's the most secret of all secrets. Not only that, it is the purest knowledge, because this knowledge of bhakti yoga and the practice of bhakti yoga helps you realize who you are, and of course helps you realize who the Supreme Lord is. And the Lord says this is the perfection of all dharma, actually, is to practice bhakti yoga. Why? Because bhakti yoga is everlasting and bhakti yoga is very joyful. It's joyful to perform. So this is the goal of any devotee. The goal of the devotee is to go back to Krishna. And therefore this chapter ends with Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto Madhya Jimam Namaskuru. Krishna is giving us those 4 instructions, Always think of me, become my devotee, offer your obeisances to me, worship me. Essentially, Krishna is saying, always remember me and never forget me. So, spiritual practices means doing everything we can to actually remember who Krishna is. And Krishna says that we should use everything that he has given us to understand who he is. And Krishna is contrasting those who don't have faith. So that means there are 2 criteria that we mentioned, non-enviousness and faith. Arjuna already has faith in Krishna. And Anasuryava, he's not envious of him. But if the opposite holds true, if someone does not have faith, then how can they transcend Prakriti? How can they get closer to the Lord? And then the Lord talks about the inconceivable potency, the relationship between him and Prakriti and the Jivatma. So this trifecta, you could call it, this triangular relationship there is. And then the Lord contrasts between those who reject him and those who surrender to him. So we'll look at a few shlokas a little closer. But essentially, Krishna is describing the psychology of the mudhas. He's returning to the topic of the mudhas, fools. In these shlokas, Krishna is talking about how Prakriti resides in him, emanates from him, how he actually maintains everything, how all of creation rests in him. And the Lord uses a wonderful analogy. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. I remember reading His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's explanation of this particular shloka. You know, the concept of God's will, free will, and evil. So the analogy that the Lord is using here, the wind is quite powerful. But what is stopping the wind from going past the sky? The sky is stopping the wind. But within the boundaries of that sky, the wind is free to move about. So there is God's will, and then there is free will that we have. So if you put a cup upside down on a surface, there is a little bit of air and wind within that upside down bowl. That wind has the freedom to move about, but it is constrained by the bowl. So we are given free will, but it is constrained by the Lord's will. It's not that we don't have free will, but it's we don't have complete free will. We can't do anything that we want. Although a lot of devotees, or rather I would say a lot of people, mundane people may claim they can do anything that they want, they are independent, they have free will, etc. They don't understand really when they use words, they're just using words. They don't have free will. If they had free will, they could live forever. Why die at all if you have free will? So we're constrained by Lord's will, but within that, the Lord has given us some amount of freedom to exercise our free will. And of course, the Lord expects us to use our free will responsibly. If we do not, then we engage in evil. And for that, there are catastrophic consequences. Which means there is a greater possibility that we may not take a human birth in the next life if we violate that free will that the Lord has given us. So essentially, the Lord is saying everything is working under His instructions, under His directions. And everything is timed perfectly. Everything works seamlessly in rhythm. There is a symphony to the Lord's order. You know, the opposite of symphony is cacophony. It's too much noise. Everything is so beautifully synchronized. So much so, it almost looks like everything is done automatically. So, but we should not mistake the word automatically to mean everything is just by chance. So Krishna is saying, although all of these things I am overseeing, nevertheless, I am detached from all of these material activities. I am neutral. So this material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing Sachara Charam, Chara and Achara, moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Here, in these two shlokas, the Lord is speaking about the psychology of fools, the mudahas. The mudahas, Krishna says, they don't acknowledge me simply because I look like them. I come in a two-handed form, so they think I must be maybe an ordinary person with extraordinary capabilities. Krishna says they don't recognize that I am the Supreme Lord. So those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes of liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Defeated by time. So people who don't obey the rules and regulations think they don't have to suffer any consequences. But their biggest suffering of consequences comes at the time of death. It is said that at the time of death, everything flashes before you. Everything that you've done and not done, and your regrets in life flash before you at the time of death. At that time, they'll realize they actually did not have free will. Complete free will they don't have. Therefore, Krishna is saying everything that they do ultimately gets destroyed. And then the Lord contrasts that with the psychology of those who are bhaktas. So, two shlokas about fools, two shlokas about great souls. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. What else is left to do? Once you realize that the Supreme Lord is Krishna, all you have to do is surrender and begin your devotional service. Once we have truly realized that in the heart and in our consciousness, that's where surrender is actually happening. Because you don't have to fight anymore. Otherwise, we are always fighting this unending battle with ourselves, with Prakriti. But once we recognize, yes, this is my Supreme Lord, this is my possession, then your anxiety, your need to constantly fight ends. And now you begin a new journey. That new journey is to be engaged in devotional service of Krishna. Everything else seems to be insignificant. And if you go back to the other path, it seems quite ignorant, quite exhausting. So when you practice bhakti, you are actually suffused with so much positive energy. So much positive energy. It just destroys all the doubts that you've ever had and that may keep cropping up every now and then. And you are in this place where you experience the transcendence of the Lord in your life every day. And therefore, Krishna says, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually means continuously, there's no interruption. They worship me with devotion. There was one such personality who was a great devotee of Lord Ram. And he had an opportunity to perform a little service to the Lord. So when the Lord was exiled and they left Ayodhya, Lord Ram, Mother Sita, and Sri Lakshman, They have to enter the forest, but before they can enter the forest, they have to cross a river. And the three of them are thinking, how are we going to cross this river? And at that time, a boatman comes there. And the Lord asks, can you take us over to the other side? And the boatman says, it would be my pleasure to do that. So he takes them to the other side. And now the Lord wants to repay the boatman. And he does not have anything with which he can make this payment for the ride. And he glances over at Mother Sita, and Mother Sita has a necklace. So he gestures to her to remove the necklace so that that can be awarded. So a Kshatriya who is served is always looking to reciprocate. So the Lord wanted to reciprocate with the Kevat, the boatsman. And the boatsman refused to take it. And the Lord insisted, says, no, you have offered me some service and I want to pay you for it. Deeper understanding of this is that when you offer service, the Lord will immediately reciprocate, thinking that the equation has evened out now. The Lord does not want to be indebted to you. Therefore, the Lord will always reciprocate. But when a pure devotee simply serves the Lord and does not ask for anything in return, then the Lord seems to get confounded. Now, what do I do? Actually, I was listening to a very nice lecture a couple of days ago by His Holiness Swayam Keshav Bhagwan Swami Maharaj. And he was explaining how the gopis in Vrindavan proved the Lord wrong. When the Lord says, Ye yata mam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyam, I will reciprocate with you to the level of your surrender. In the sense, the Lord will always reciprocate with you. Now, Maharaj was saying the gopis proved that his statement was incorrect. Because the gopis had so much love for Krishna, he couldn't repay them. And therefore the Lord says, you are greater than me. Your devotion to me, I cannot even reciprocate. I don't know how I will pay you back. Therefore, just be happy doing your devotion. So this is the position of the pure devotee. They're always chanting the Lord's glories, which is what the gopis were doing. They always wanted to serve Krishna. So that's how much love and devotion that they had for the Lord. So the class that Maharaj was giving was actually about 6 different types of atheists that we come across. And Maharaj concluded the class by saying there are also transcendental atheists. All these atheists live in Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual world. Why are they transcendental atheists? Because they have forgotten that God is God, and therefore they treat him as equal and sometimes their junior. Therefore, the gopis get to boss around Krishna, tell him what to do, make fun of him, because they have forgotten that he is God. Therefore, in a way, they are also atheists, but they are atheists, transcendental atheists, because they have forgotten the Lord's majesty and opulences. They think the Lord is one of my own. He's my friend. He's my lover. He's my child. So they have this sense of great ownership of Krishna, that Krishna belongs to them. So the boatsman says, actually, in this area, we have an agreement. that every boatsman gives another boatman a ride for free. And Lord Ram says, yeah, you are a boatsman, but I am Darsharatha Suta. I am the son of King Dasharatha. I am not a boatsman. And the boatsman very gently pushes back and he says, I am a small boatsman. I transferred you from the bank of this side of the river to the other side of the river. But you are the biggest boatsman because you actually have the power to carry the soul from the material universe, cross the Viraja river, which divides the material world from the spiritual world, and takes you over to the other side of the Viraja river. So the boatsman asks, do we have a deal? Because you are the bigger boatsman. So essentially, boatsman was saying, the best way you can reward me is to carry me over to the other side, back home, back in your service in the spiritual world. So the Lord does not like to be obliged to anybody. He does not want to become bound by small tokens of affection. So that's why the Lord says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. So if you do any small act, but with great love and devotion for the Lord, Krishna will accept it. So now in these shlokas, the Lord has spoken about one category, fools who deride him. Then the Lord has gone to the other extreme and spoken about great souls who are completely surrendered to him. That means there must be some people in between. They are not completely atheists and fools, but they are not also pure devotees. So I assume a few of us, if not all of us, fall in between somewhere there. What about those people? So Krishna now talks about different types of people who worship different aspects of him. Yeah. So how is the Lord concluding what his great devotees do? They are bowing down before him. They are worshipping him perpetually. And then Krishna comes to three different types of devotees. I don't recall if it was on the slide or not, but let's take a look. I think it was on the slide. I remember seeing it. It should be after this. Yeah. So in Shloka 15, Krishna is saying, others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many, and in the universal form. So Krishna talks about three different types of people with different tastes. Ekatvena, Kritaktvena, Bahuda Vishwado Mukham, Krishna says. Ekatvena, Kritaktvena, Bahudha Vishwato Mukham. Ekatvena. Some people believe that they are God. They've just forgotten that they are God. Once they realize the Brahman feature of themselves, they believe they've achieved the ultimate of practicing some transcendental path. Then there is the Pritakttvena. Who's the Pritakttvena? They worship various aspects of the Lord in the form of demigod worship, Pritaktvena, many different facets of the Lord's energies. And Bahudha Vishvato Mukham. In Bahuda Vishvato Mukham, there are some who worship the Virat Rupa form of the Lord, the entire cosmos, as being part and parcel of the Lord. So these are the three different types of worshippers who fall in between the fools and the pure devotees. And then the Lord talks about how He's everything. He's the ritual, He's the sacrifice, He's the father, He's the mother, everything. So Lord is giving examples to Arjuna of how he can perceive the Lord in this material cosmos. And this is a good goal definition of God, actually. I am the goal, Krishna says. I am the sustainer. I am the master. I am the witness. I am the abode. I am the refuge and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place and the eternal seed. So Krishna is saying everything comes from Him. Everything emanates from the Lord. So let's look at it. We said that this particular chapter talks about the highest and most confidential aspects of this supreme spiritual science. So in chapters 2 and 3, Krishna begins to talk about the soul and the duties of the soul. And then in chapters 7 and 8, Krishna is talking about devotional service, which is a little bit more confidential information. And in chapter 9, Krishna is talking about pure devotional service. So chapter 7 and 8 is mixed devotional service. But here Krishna is going to talk about pure devotional service, pure bhakti, which is the most confidential of all knowledge. So as we said, the qualifications to receive is you should not be envious and you should have faith. Now, when we say you should not be envious of the Lord, what does that really mean? I mean, if we ask you, are you envious of the Lord? I'm sure most of us would be quite firm in saying, I'm not envious of the Lord. So, how do we understand what this word envy really means? There is a nice example given by a senior preacher. So, let us say you're watching a cricket match. We always idolize someone, or we always have these concepts of who we could be. So, when we're watching a cricket match, we are always imagining that, we are that superstar, the great batsman, or the phenomenal bowler, or whatever it is. This is actually envy. Now you may say, well, wait a minute, but what's wrong in having a dream? A nice dream, thinking that I have all these great talent that I could also be just like that great batsman or great bowler. It's just that you want something that you don't have. The Lord has not given you that gift or that talent, but still you want it, and that is considered envy. So when the Lord says, I can only reveal this knowledge to those who do not envy me, when we see the Lord and His opulence and understand what His position is, still we should not want to be just like the Lord. Therefore, the Lord says, this knowledge is only accessible to those who do not have envy and who have faith in me. So you could say that chapter 2 was about the soul, and chapters 3 to 6 was how to realize yourself through different processes: Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. And you could say that chapters 7 and 8 talk about the best process to realize yourself. That it is not Sankhya Yoga, it is not Ashtanga Yoga, it is not Jnana Yoga. That the best process to follow to realize the soul is to practice some bhakti. And the best process is Kevala Bhakti, which means only bhakti untinged by anything material. So this chapter 9 talks about Kevala Bhakti. Only bhakti, nothing else can get you that speedy access to the Supreme Lord's realm. So Krishna is glorifying that process of pure bhakti in this chapter. If you look at some of these shlokas where Krishna has said, 4 types of people do not surrender to me, and then 4 who do surrender to me, etc. So that muda, that fools, the usage of that word, the Lord has utilized in chapter 8. So that psychology is carried over here into this chapter. And we talked about the other 3 types of worshippers, the distance between the mudha and the pure devotees. There are people in between on that continent. And then Krishna talks about worshipping demigods from shlokas 20 to 25. So what happens, what is Krishna actually doing? Krishna is going to contrast worshipping demigods to pure devotion to Krishna. So Krishna from 20 to 25 will take the opportunity to let us know what are the results of worshipping the demigod. We've already read this in chapter 7 to a small extent, but Krishna is actually going to expand on that a little bit more, which is whichever demigod you worship, maximum you can go to the planet in which that demigod resides. You cannot enter the spiritual world by worshipping the demigod. That is very, very clear. And Krishna says, whatever good things you have done, you have to exhaust it, and then you come back to the middle planetary systems and start that cycle all over again. So the sense of enjoyment has to be given. And the sense of enjoyment is what the pure devotees have given up. The pure devotees only want to do what brings Krishna joy and enjoyment, not what brings them enjoyment. Whatever makes Krishna happy is what makes them happy. So, for example, when Krishna says, you will go to the upper planetary systems where the demigods reside, we know that 365 days of our time is just one day of the demigods. Therefore, Chaturmas is like the night time for the demigods when they are resting. The rest of the, you could say, 18 hours is the waking time of the demigods. And then there is a fascinating shloka here. So now Krishna is talking about what happens to those who worship demigods, and now he is going to immediately contrast it with what happens to those who worship him. So Krishna says here, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janah pariyupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyam. It's a fascinating shloka actually. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. There is a great Acharya by the name Arjunacharya from the Sri Sampradaya. So he was reading this particular shloka and he saw this word Vahamyaham. The Lord is saying, I carry what they lack. I preserve what they have. So he thought there must be some mistake here. So he, on his copy of the Bhagavad Gita, he strikes out the word Vahami and replaces it with Karomi, meaning I will use whatever means necessary to carry what they lack and preserve what they have, which means that the Lord does not have to be personally involved to carry what you lack and to preserve what you have. That's what Sri Arjunacharya thought. Why should the Lord be engaged in such service to his devotees? He can always use his energy potency to do the same thing. Why does the Lord need to be personally involved here? So therefore, he strikes out the word Vahami and replaces it with the word Karomi. And then he goes for a bath. So as he stepped out of the house, two beautiful young boys come, knock on the door, and Sri Arjunacharya's wife opens the door, and these two beautiful boys are carrying wonderful gifts for her, groceries, fruits, nice dakshina they have come to give to the Brahmana and the Brahmana's family. So Sri Arjunacharya's wife is so mesmerized by these two beauty. She asks them, why don't you come inside and spend some time with us? And they say, no, 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 your husband beat us. And she was just quite taken aback. She was asking, what do you mean my husband has beaten you? So both of them turn their back to her and say, see this? He struck us on our back. And she was quite upset. She didn't know that her husband could do such a thing. And so the two boys said, sorry, we'd love to stay, but we can't stay. We don't trust your husband. So Arjunacharya comes back and she questions him, why did you beat these two boys? He says, which two boys? She says, the two that came to give us a gift. They said you've struck them across their back. I saw the welts on both their backs. They're so beautiful. Why did you do that? And Arjunacharya immediately understood that Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram had come. They didn't give darshan to him, they gave darshan to his wife. So he quickly went to the book and replaced it with the word Vahami. So the Lord was categorical in stating that I carry for my devotees what they lack. I personally preserve for them what they have. But what is the criteria? Krishna is saying, those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, not anything else. Meditating on me, who acknowledge that I am a personality. I am not this Brahman. So for such exclusive devotees, Krishna says, I carry for them what they lack and I preserve what they have. Then we come to the shloka where the Lord talks about Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. We can contrast these two shlokas and see what is the difference. In the first shloka, Krishna is saying, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Now contrast it with the second shloka. Whatever you do, yat karoshi, yat juhosi, yat dadasi, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. What's the difference between these two shlokas? In one shloka, the word love, bhaktya, is used. In the next shloka, Krishna is saying, Yat karoshi yadashnasi, yat juhoshi dadasi, yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Krishna is saying, in shloka 26, I am telling you what I want. I want fruit, flower, leaf, water. But it has to be offered with love. In Shloka 27, Krishna is saying, if you don't care for what you want, but still you are doing some devotion, then he says, okay, fine. Whatever you do, offer it to me. Krishna does not use the word accept here. So Krishna only accepts love. If you're trying to buy him and purchase him, Krishna will not reciprocate. Therefore, Krishna is saying, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. In this shloka, there is no mention of the word I accept and love. So, so what you want to give Krishna is in shloka 27. What Krishna wants from you is in shloka 26. The choice is ours. But not that this is wrong, it at least takes you towards Krishna. But the mood is different, you see. The mood in shloka 26 is you love the Lord and therefore you offer everything out of love for him. In shloka 27, you want to be dutiful to the Lord. So out of a sense of duty, you may follow all this. Whatever you eat, you'll offer it as bhoga. Whatever austerity you perform, you do it for Krishna, because that's what you're told to do. So love has not come into the picture in shloka 27. Although in shloka 27, you are doing things that Krishna wants you to do, at least you're on the right path. But this is not considered pure bhakti. Shloka 27 is mixed bhakti, in the sense you have not come to that realization that Krishna is your ultimate refuge. We don't have any other choice other than Krishna. When you come to that realization, everything you do for Krishna will be out of a sphere of love, not as a matter of just basic duty. Even if you do it as a duty, Krishna will release you from bondage. But that doesn't mean you will get pure bhakti. Yes. And then some challenging shlokas in 29:31. So Krishna is saying, if you do this, in this way, you'll be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. So at least you'll be performing a karma. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. Yeah, so at some point, Krishna is saying you will get liberation. And then there is this interesting shloka. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So, how do we understand this particular shloka? When the Lord says, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone, I am equal to all. He's talking about himself as Paramatma. As Paramatma, he resides in all of us, no exceptions. And anybody can approach Paramatma. He does not have any barriers then. So, how do you understand the second sentence? But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So, again, the concept of devotion comes. Krishna says that when you're doing things out of love and devotion for me, then automatically I'm your friend, you're my friend, and we're all happy, having a very happy, joyful relationship. So here Krishna is saying, I reciprocate with you and I am partial to you when you accept me as Bhagavan, when you accept me as a supreme personality of Godhead. And that's why Krishna multiple times in the Bhagavad Gita uses the word exclusive devotion. In the sense that you've given up worship of anyone and everyone else, and you are only worshipping Lord Krishna. That is pure devotion. That is on the path to pure devotion. So, as Bhagavan, Krishna is impartially partial. So we'll try and understand what this really means, but we'll look at a particular pastime and then we'll come back to what does this mean when we say the Lord is impartially partial. So when Vibhishana comes to meet Lord Ram for the first time, Lord Ram greets him as Lankapati, and the servants of Lord Ram, the monkeys and others, were quite shocked. They asked the Lord, "You've already appointed him king. We've not even stepped over into Lanka. The battle has not been started yet. We have not defeated Ravana, but already you are addressing Vibhishana as Lankapati. My dear Lord, why did you do that? What if Ravana comes to you tomorrow and surrenders to you? Then what would you do?" Then Lord Ram says, "Well, if Ravana indeed comes and surrenders to me, I will give him my kingdom, Ayodhya. So I will give Vibhishana Lanka. I will give my own kingdom to Ravana if he only would come and surrender." Then where would you go, Lord? Because Ayodhya is your place, yours, your residence. The Lord says, "I will go live in the hearts of my devotees because that's my real home." This is devotion. This is what the Lord experiences when we have pure love for Him. He is always with us. He is never far away from us. So to His devotees, the Lord is impartially partial, which means even if Ravana comes, Krishna will be partial to him. Which means the Lord is impartial in the sense that He has no barriers. Anybody can come and take shelter of Him. The worst of the worst people can come and take shelter of Him. I think this question came up multiple times, what if people do this or do that? And will Krishna excuse it or will Krishna accept it? Yes. The answer is yes, yes, and yes. If you have approached Krishna, a huge impediment for your own progress has been shattered. So, why would the Lord not reciprocate with you if you've taken a step towards Him? It is said that the Lord takes 100 steps towards His devotees. The Lord is impartial in the sense anybody can approach Him. Anybody. And the Lord is partial to whoever has already approached Him. Then the Lord gives His personal protection to them. So, whoever comes to Him, Krishna is partial to them. Krishna is impartial in the sense anyone can come to Krishna. But someone who has gone to Krishna, Krishna is partial to them. He doesn't look at, oh, but you're not pure. Where if all of us had to be pure, then none of us would go to the spiritual world. We wouldn't even bother starting. We would think, oh, the hurdle is so high. Why should I even try? That's why the Lord is saying, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. In the sense, I am accessible to all. I am within reach to everyone. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Then Krishna says, even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. He is determined to continue practicing Krishna consciousness. That's all the Lord is looking at. The Lord is not looking at, has he finished giving up this? Has he not done that? Why has he not done that? If you've taken that first step, the Lord is there in your life. And then the Lord says he quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. So the Lord himself is saying that person will make very speedy progress and attains lasting peace. So son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. See, why is the Lord asking Arjuna to declare this? Because sometimes the Lord is forced to break his own promise for the protection of his devotees. But the Lord never violates the promise that his devotee has made on his behalf. You know? So the Lord is so kind that Ratnamala, who is considered to be the sister of Bali Maharaj, in some scriptures it says she is his daughter. When she sees Vamanadev, this small, beautiful looking Brahmana boy, she is immediately attracted to the Lord. Of course, she does not know it's the Lord, but it invokes in her parental love, and she thinks, if only this little boy were my son, I would feed him my milk. But then later on, when the Lord cheats Bali Maharaj, with the word cheats being in quotes, and takes away his everything, and Bali Maharaj does complete Atma Nivedanam, she is infuriated and she thinks, if this little boy were my child, I would personally kill him. And so the same Ratnamala comes in another body as Putana to offer her milk to the Lord in order to try unsuccessfully to take the Lord's life. The opposite happens. The Lord takes her life, he sucks her life out of her chest, and he sends her to the spiritual world. We may ask, even somebody who came with an intent to kill Krishna, just because she had that desire to feed the Lord overlooked everything else. And you may say, but the Lord killed her. Yes, he killed her, but he gave her her position back in the spiritual world as one of the nurses. So this is how merciful the Lord is. All he wants is for you to take that steps. Krishna will always reciprocate. So that's why Krishna says, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Imagine, Krishna considers you his devotee even though you're doing the most obnoxious things. But because you're worshipping him with sincerity and faith and determination, Krishna overlooks everything else. Sorry about that. So here, the Lord is saying, O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, and Shudras, can attain the supreme destination. So, how do we understand this shloka? Because sometimes this shloka is misunderstood. In Vedic culture, Krishna always speaks as per what the cultural practices were at that time. In Vedic culture, it was only Brahmanas and Kshatriyas who attended Gurukul. Vaishyas and Shudras did not have access to Brahma Vidya. What is taught in Gurukul? Brahma Vidya, among other things, of course, but Brahma Vidya is the main point. Since Vaishyas and Shudras don't get the opportunity to go to Gurukul, and also because girls didn't get opportunity to be exposed to this Brahma Vidya knowledge, therefore Krishna is saying, even for them, if they just take shelter of me, they don't have to worry about learning about Brahma Vidya. Even those who don't have access to the scientific knowledge, only if they take shelter of me, they can come back to me in the supreme destination. Then Krishna says, how much more this is so of the righteous Brahmana. So if you didn't have access to this knowledge and you are not well versed in Brahma Vidya, Just by taking shelter of me, I take care of you. But imagine if you're doing all the right things and if you've already my devotee, like these saintly kings, Raja Rishis. Krishna says all you have to do is engage in loving service unto me. Krishna says, therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Engage your mind always in thinking about me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come back to me. So, Krishna is accessible. The Supreme Lord is accessible to all of us. That's the essence of what the Lord is saying. The Lord is saying, I know I've put you here because you didn't want to come back home. You're stuck here. But why don't you begin your journey by simply engaging in loving service of me? So that is why this particular chapter is about Kevala Bhakti. Kevala Bhakti is superior to demigod worship. Kevala Bhakti elevates even the most fallen soul. So this is the Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga. This is the most secret knowledge. Krishna is saying if you practice bhakti, you can overcome anything. Because with my mercy and with my reciprocation, I will carry for you what you lack and preserve for you what you already have. Yoga Kshemam Mahamyam. With that, we come to chapter number 10. Chapter 10 is a fascinating chapter. It's called Vibhuti Yoga. Before we begin, let's offer our most humble obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So today's acronym is here. So let us see how this chapter begins. Remember, hearing is important. So how does this chapter begin? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, listen again, O mighty armed Arjuna, because you are my dear friend. For your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained. So after talking about the most confidential knowledge, Krishna is saying, actually, I can reveal a little bit more something to you. So why don't you hear carefully? And then Krishna says, neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. So Krishna is saying, the demigods don't understand me. The great rishis don't understand me. How can they understand me? Because I am the source. How can a part understand the machine or the creator of that machine? It's not possible. Then Krishna says, actually, I can be understood. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all the worlds, he only, undiluted among men, is freed from all sins. So Krishna is saying this theme came in chapter 4 also, where Krishna says anybody who knows about my transcendental birth, my transcendental activities, after this life, they don't have to return to the material world. They are already freed of all sins. Krishna is repeating that here. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all the worlds, he only undiluted among men is freed from all sins. And then Krishna talks about the qualities of such a person: intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. Krishna is saying all these qualities come from me. The seven great sages And before them, the four other great sages and the Manus come from me, born from my mind. And all living beings populating the various planets descend from them. Krishna is telling for you your own genealogy, how all of us have come down here. So all of us can trace our origin back to the Supreme Lord through the sages and the other rishis and the Manus. One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this, there is no doubt. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So Krishna is saying, once you know who I am, there's nothing left for you than to surrender to me. There's nothing left for you to do than to surrender to me. Then Krishna says, the thoughts of my pure devotees. Actually, this is the Chatushloke, but we'll come to that in just a minute. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So, Krishna is talking about how great his pure devotees are. What are they doing? They are always thinking of me. Their entire life is dedicated to me. And how are they experiencing bliss? Even in this material world, they're always talking about me. They're always exchanging transcendental pastimes with each other. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me, which means to return to Krishna. Krishna is making it clear you need his mercy. You need his assistance. Without his support and assistance, even though you may be practicing bhakti, on your own you cannot go back to Krishna. Krishna has to shower his causeless mercy on you. And you can extract his mercy through the level of your surrender to him. And then Krishna, to end the Chatushloke, he says, to show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with a shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So Krishna is saying, I actually help them overcome their ignorance. I do it from within them. So these four shlokas, 8, 9, 10, and 11, are considered the entire Bhagavad Gita in 4 verses. Hence, they are called Chatushloke Gita. Essentially, it summarizes the relationship between the Lord and his devotees, what the devotees do for the Lord, and what the Lord does in return for his devotees. This encapsulates the sweetness of the Bhagavad Gita just in these 4 verses. So hearing again is an important feature if you want to learn in advance in spirituality. The essence of the Bhagavad Gita in the 4 shlokas from 8 to 11. Acceptance by devotees of Krishna's position and opulence. And then from 19 to 42, Krishna is going to give examples to Arjuna of how his devotees enjoy his vibhuti, how they see his opulence everywhere and they understand that the Lord is everywhere. So Krishna wants Arjuna to hear. What is the process to develop firm faith in Krishna? Hearing and also Krishna's mercy is essential for you to make progress. How do you get free from sins? Just by knowing that Krishna is unborn, that he is the supreme absolute truth. That, just that knowledge alone wipes out all your sins. And all qualities, as we read, are created by Krishna. So Krishna says, Tam vibhutim yogam cha mama yo veti tatpatah so vikalpena yogena yujyate natra samshayah. One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this, there is no doubt. So, Krishna says we must have faith that he exists. How can that faith be strengthened? Just by looking all around you, seeing how everything is beautifully working in synchronity. One belief is that we need to know that there is a supreme personality of Godhead. The second belief is that he plays a role in your life, that he is the cause of all causes, he is sustaining you. Then the fact that Krishna is benevolent, as much as we try to understand him, to that extent he showers his mercy upon us. And faith that Krishna has a better plan for you than any plan that you can come up for yourself. Krishna's plans and his decisions are always wiser than ours. So the more attentively one hears, the more one becomes fixed up in devotional service. To understand this scientific Bhagavad Gita, this confidential knowledge, we actually need Krishna's blessings. So if a living entity comes in contact with Bhagavad Gita and comes in contact with devotees, they can consider themselves to be the most fortunate people on earth or anywhere in this universe, because that is very rare. To be given the opportunity to spend time with the Lord's devotees and to associate with them and to enjoy the transcendental aspects of devotional service. Therefore, Krishna says, Mat chitta mat gata prana bodhayantah parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Therefore, Krishna says, the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So, what is the result of knowing about Krishna's opulence? You go back, all your sinful reactions are wiped out. What is pure devotion? It's that the devotees don't ask Krishna for anything in return. They just want to be given the opportunity to serve and love Krishna. So, to whom does Krishna give intelligence to attain him? To those who become his devotees. How do you come out of this ignorance? Actually, Krishna himself uh, lights the torch of knowledge. So, aham sarvasya prabhavo mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam budha bhava samanvitaah. Krishna is saying, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts, which means they are completely faithful. They do it with great joy. Then, tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Krishna is telling us how involved he is in our lives. We just have to take that first step towards the Supreme Lord. And the Lord goes out of his way to help you from there on out. So, what are the 3 O's to progress in bhakti? Our only goal in life should be Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. That's all that matters. And what's the only qualification that is required? Is faith and determination in performing that devotional service. And what is Krishna's expectation? That you will offer him some seva. You will work for him and you will work on behalf of him. So if one wants to progress in Krishna consciousness, then one should not consider Krishna and his name to be ordinary. That's why chanting of the holy names gives you the same results or even superior results than doing Ashtanga Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Therefore, devotees don't want to waste time. Now that we've understood the secret knowledge that Krishna has talked about in chapters 9 and 10 and throughout the Bhagavad Gita, why would we want to waste any more time? So we should spend more time hearing about Krishna, talking about Krishna, and making our lives perfect. But that requires sincerity, that requires love, that requires faith. Then Arjuna then asks questions. Arjuna says, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa confirm this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. So Arjuna's concluding here, I have already heard all of this from great sages because I've had the great opportunity to interact with all these great people. I have heard from them that you are the Supreme Lord. Now you yourself are telling me that you are the Supreme Lord. O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. Arjuna is saying, I'm accepting everything that you're saying. But it's very, very difficult to understand you. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your own internal potency, O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. This actually sets the stage for chapter 11, this particular shloka. The cosmic form of the Lord. Then what is Arjuna saying? Please tell me in detail of your divine opulences by which you pervade all these worlds. So Arjuna is asking, yes, I have also heard about your vibhutis from all these great sages, but I want to hear directly from you. I have heard them describe your immeasurable potencies. But my dear Lord, can you not tell me some examples of your potency? O Krishna, O Supreme Mystic, how shall I constantly think of you? And how shall I know you? In what various forms are you to be remembered, O Supreme Personality of Godhead? So Arjuna is asking a practical question. You are asking me to think about you and then fight. What are the different ways in which I can think about you? O Janardana, again please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. I am never satiated in hearing about you, for the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. So Arjuna is saying, this is a position of a devotee, right? They never tire hearing about the Supreme Lord. They want to hear more and more. Even if it is the same thing that they are hearing, they want to hear it again. So Arjuna is asking Krishna, tell me, although I may have already heard this, I'm never satisfied. I want to hear it again and again. Then the Lord says, yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless. So Krishna is very gently telling Arjuna, I can't tell you everything about me because it will be never ending. I can give you some prime examples of how you can always think of me. And then the Lord begins to talk about his opulence. He begins by saying, I am the super soul, O Arjuna, seated in the hearts of all living entities. I am the beginning, the middle, and end of all beings, which means we came from Krishna, we are sustained by Krishna, we'll go back to Krishna. Whether as liberated or not, we don't know. Then Krishna gives examples. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marichi. And among the stars, I am the moon. Of the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. Of the demigods, I am Indra, the king of heaven. Of the senses, I am the mind. And in living beings, I am the living force, consciousness. Of all the Rudras, I am Lord Shiva. Of the Yakshas and Rakshasas, I am the Lord of wealth, Kuvera. Of the Vasus, I am fire, Agni. And of mountains, I am Meru. Of priests, O Arjuna, know me to be the chief Brihaspati. Of generals, I am Kartikeya. And of bodies of water, I am the ocean. Of the great sages, I am Bhrigu. Of vibrations, I am the transcendental Om. Of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names, Japa. So Krishna is saying of all sacrifices, the topmost sacrifice is to do Japa, to chant the holy names of the Lord. And of immovable things, I am the Himalayas. Of all the trees, I am the banyan tree. And of the sages among the demigods, I am Narada. Of the Gandharvas, I am Chitraratha. And among perfected beings, I am the sage Kapila. Of horses, know me to be Uchchaishrava, produced during the churning of the ocean for nectar. Of lordly elephants, I am Airavata. And among men, I am the monarch. Of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Among cows, I am the Surabhi. Of causes for procreation, I am Kandarpa, the god of love. And of serpents, I am Vasuki. Of the many-hooded Nagas, I am Ananta. And among the aquatics, I am the demigod Varuna. Of departed ancestors, I am Aryama. And among the dispensers of Lord, I am Yama, the Lord of Death. Among the Daitya demons, I am the devoted Prahalada. Among subduers, I am Time. Among beasts, I am the lion. And among birds, I am Garuda. Of purifiers, I am the wind. Of the wielders of weapon, I am Rama. Of fishes, I am the shark. And of flowing rivers, I am the Ganges. Of all creations, I am the beginning and the end, and also the middle, Lord Arjuna. Of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self, and among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. Of the letters, I am the letter A, and among compound words, I am the dual compound. I am also inexhaustible time, and of creators, I am Brahma. I am all devouring death, and I am the generating principle of all that is yet to be. Among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. These are considered, these qualities are considered womanly. Doesn't mean that only women have these qualities. Of the hymns in the Samaveda, I am the Brihat Sama. And of poetry, I am the Gayatri. Of months, I am Margashirsha. And of seasons, I am flower-bearing spring. I am also the gambling of cheats. So Krishna is saying there's no greater cheater than me. If you try to cheat me, I will have the last laugh. And of the splendid, I am the splendor. I am victory. I am adventure. And I am the strength of the strong. Of the descendants of Vrishni, I am Vasudeva. And of the Pandavas, I am Arjuna. Of the sages, I am Vyasa. And among great thinkers, I am Ushana. Among all means of suppressing lawlessness, I am punishment. And of those who seek victory, I am morality. Of secret things, I am silence. And of the wise, I am the wisdom. Furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences. There is no being, moving or non-moving, that can exist without me. Krishna is saying, I have given you some examples now, so think about it. I am the cause of everything. Nobody can exist without me. O mighty conqueror of enemies, there is no end to my divine manifestations. What I have spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. So Krishna is saying, my opulences, they go on. There's no end to my opulences. How can I describe them to you? And then the chapter concludes. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Krishna is saying, whatever I've told you, and all the strength of my opulences is actually coming from just a mere fragment of my body. I'm just giving you a very small percentage of how glorious I am. And then Krishna asks Arjuna a question. It's a rhetorical question. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. So Krishna is saying, you asked me about my opulences. You should know that with just a single fragment of myself, I am maintaining and managing this entire cosmos. So, we talked about all of this. I think practically we've read all of the shlokas here. How Arjuna says, you can notice in this picture, Arjuna is still sitting down. Arjuna says, I've already heard who you are, my dear Lord, but it would be nice to hear examples from you. It's not that Arjuna does not know that Krishna is a supreme Lord, but he is asking these questions for the benefit of common people who may not know and who may not understand who Krishna really is. To give them a taste of what Krishna is all about, Arjuna asks this question to elicit Krishna's response to this. And of course, devotees really enjoy hearing about Krishna. So when Krishna begins to speak about himself, oh, it's poetry in motion. It's singing, it's dancing, everything is going on. And you become absorbed in how Krishna is describing himself in so many ways. Now, what is important to understand is that in these shlokas, when Krishna says, I am this and I am that, I am this and I am that, it does not mean Krishna is literally that. He is simply saying, I am present in every Jivatma. I am present in non-moving things. I am present in moving things. Because all of the opulences that belong to all these different types of characters and personalities and all these different types of matter, everything Krishna is saying coming from me. Therefore, understanding this actually helps purify your mind. And as Arjuna is talking about the parampara system, how he has heard from great acharyas, we should also be hearing from great acharyas. And when we hear from the lips of a pure devotee, then of course, transformation will happen. So it's not possible to understand Krishna's greatness by trying to on our own. Krishna resides in our heart. And if we take a step towards him, then Krishna himself will reveal who he is to you. So many examples Krishna is giving Arjuna of how we can see Krishna everywhere and in everything. What is considered living and non-living, both Jada and Chetana, seeing Krishna everywhere. So Krishna is giving us examples of how, by hearing about him and his glorious opulences, we can begin the process of purifying our senses, our mind, and intelligence. So essentially, everything comes from Krishna. At some point in time, everything needs to go back to Krishna, either in a liberated state or a trapped state still. So Krishna is saying, Athava bahunaitena kimnyatena tavajana vishtabhyaham idam kritsnam ekamshena sthito jagat. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. So the reason this chapter is called Vibhuti Yoga, the word Vibhuti means opulences of the Lord. So Krishna is giving so many examples of how he is opulent. But what is the most opulent aspect of the Lord? That the devotees of the Lord adorn Krishna with their love. The single word summary for today's chapter: if the password to the spiritual world is to perform bhakti, who is that performs bhakti? It's the bhakta. The bhakta is the most precious possession for the Supreme Lord. All of the other opulences, although they sound majestic, although they sound so attractive, what is most attractive is the devotee's love and affection for the Supreme Lord. So that is why today's chapter, in the Chatushloke, out of the 4 shlokas, 3.5 shlokas, the Lord is speaking about his devotees. Only, I would say, even just a quarter of the first shloka, the Lord is saying, I am the source of everything material and spiritual. Everything else, the Lord is focused on the devotee. He's talking about what his devotees do, how do they enjoy themselves, how do they enlighten themselves. And then again, Krishna comes back and concludes by saying, I give them that torch to get rid of their ignorance. From within their heart, I reveal myself to them, because they are not asking for anything in return. So this is the essence of Vibhuti Yoga, which sets the stage. Now, Arjuna has asked for Krishna to describe for him his opulences. Now Arjuna becomes even more curious. He has heard, now he wants to see those opulences. And he will get to see it in the form of Vishvarupa Dharshana Yoga, the universal form. The sum total of all of the Lord's opulences in the material world is revealed in the Virat Rupa form of the Lord. So join us tomorrow to learn about the different forms of the Lord in this chapter 11, which is again a very lyrical chapter, fascinating chapter of how the cosmic form is perceived by Sanjaya, how the cosmic form is described by the Lord himself, and what is Arjuna seeing in this cosmic form. At first, he's just awestruck, and then he's overcome by fear. And then by the end of the chapter, he's begging Krishna, I've had enough of this movie, so let's move on. I get it. I get your opulence through your Virat Rupa form. Hare Krishna.